So you're the man who can tell us some of the secrets or anything about season 2. What can you share?
Next question. I don't know. I don't know how to answer a question that general.
You got to have talking points, but nobody's able to tell us very much.
We've got a lot of exciting things we're really excited about. I don't know how to answer a question that general. I'm sorry.
How has it been dealing with timelines, and I have to imagine that just sort of setting the rules, or at least trying to lay them out in the first season. Can you talk a little bit about how complicated that is going into season 2, especially as the way things left off in the first?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you do anything with like time travel, obviously time travel is not real. So everybody sort of has their theory on how it works, and I think what was important for us was that it more than making logical sense, it had to make emotional sense, and as long as you understood what was happening to the characters emotionally, and as long as you understood what the stakes were, I mean, I think any of these, if you start going backwards on it, you're like, well, wait a minute, I went back 3 levels, and if that happened, then wouldn't that have affected that? And it's like you can only sort of stopgap the logic of it so much. So we feel like we have our rules. That there certainly is cause and effect. That time is not immutable. That time can be changed. Our entire series takes place in a alternative timeline. From the one that should have existed. And those are sort of the stars we guide ourselves by.
What's going to make season 2 unique from season 1 in terms of structure? The thematics of the show, interactions. The multiverse is there now. So.
I think that the kinds of villains we're having and what their agenda is certainly very different this year. We have I think that what the characters are going through this year. Like last year was sort of really about like getting the band together in a way, and Barry under his first initial steps into being the Flash. And this year, it's really like, okay, great, we're doing it now. Like, what does that mean? And I think one of the biggest things that we're sort of tackling this year, which is very different from many of the other shows we've done, is that everybody in Central City knows about the Flash now, and he is becoming a public figure, and the notion that the denizens of Central City live in a universe where people have superpowers, and there are evil people with superpowers, and you could be walking down the street and somebody could melt a building in front of you is not outlandish anymore. But by the same token, they all know that there's a savior out there who has powers to fight them back. So watching Barry deal with the fact that he's becoming a little bit famous, and he's not just the mysterious red streak, and is something that gets dealt with a lot in the early episodes.
So kind of going with outlandish ideas, did you know the audience would embrace the name Reverse Flash, or we just kind of, is that the goal? Just make it work?
I think that's part of what's great about Cisco is that Cisco sort of is us as the writers, and hopefully as the writers he's a lot of the audience, and because these, we always said these guys would not name themselves,
right.
But Cisco, naming them, that's kind of fun. And then for a couple of the guys who've actually heard what Cisco calls them, going, yeah, I kind of like that. I think that certainly more so than Arrow, where we were testing the waters a little bit more in the early going to see how much comic book people were willing to accept. The Flash, it just is what it is, and and I think that's the very successful comic book adaptations have been the people who just said, you know what, this is what it is, and we're going to freaking go for it. And that was if we were going to go down, we were going to go down with our version and our passion for the show.
And was that the thought behind going full broad?
Yeah. 100%.
I read that you were going to keep up with the crossovers, so do you give her a lot of credit for lifting the popularity of Flash, and how often do you keep planning to do a crossover episode?
Yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be Flash without Arrow. I mean, certainly, it's just like there wouldn't have been the Avengers and all that without Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man. So I mean, everything that we're doing, I mean, even Supergirl, even though it's not connected, it's all coming out of the success that we had with Steven and with Arrow, and we certainly continue. Legends is essentially the crossovers every week. Because that was sort of where it was born out of. Was like it was so much fun seeing everybody get together. And we do have crossovers planned, both episode 8s again this year, which will air in December, are a 2-part crossover. It starts on Flash and ends on Arrow, and then that's sort of the big crossover event, and then throughout the year, just as we did last year, there's like the mini crossovers where it was just one character, like Felicity coming over to Flash, or we had Felicity and Ray come over, but then there was even a great little moment at the end of Arrow, it was around episode 16 where we saw Carlos, for one scene. So these shows are linked, and they're if there's a terrorist attack in Central City, they're going to hear about it in Starling City, just like if there was something terrible happened in New York, we would hear about it here in LA. So I think there was a concern we had early on that are we going to, sometimes when you expand these things they implode, and instead they seem to lift each other up. So.
Are there any season 1 villains that you're going to try to bring back?
Grodd
or that you want?
Definitely coming back, for sure.
How many new DC Comics characters are you looking to introduce? Are you looking to unload a bunch more rogues, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be more rogues. We don't sit down and sort of say how many characters can we dump into this. It's like what can we do for the characters that we have, and when we bring somebody on, it's not just to bring that a character on. It's to how is that character coming in going to affect and change and help our characters grow.
Great.